What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. I wish we had like a drum roll. Like episode number, what are we on?
We're up there.
160, let's say.
160-something, yeah.
Welcome to episode 160-something. It's a community. It's a nation. We call ourselves Leaner Nation. Welcome, everybody, to Leadership Lean In. And I want to thank everybody that likes, subscribes, comments. The YouTube, it's just exploding, you guys. It's kind of crazy. And it's all you guys. I'm kidding. Thank you so much for everybody that's a part of our community. We're trying to get a little bit better. That's our whole point. That's our value. As promised, progress. Make sure you get the hat. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. I am very excited because today I am joined by a phenomenal leader, a force of leadership. This guy is a pioneer. He's a visionary leader. What a strong, just right there, visionary and leader together. He drove up today from Orange County. It's a separate state than Los Angeles. Welcome, everybody. Pastor Mark Francey is in the house. Yeah, we're gonna put in like a cheer right there.
Get out of here.
Man, thank you so much for being here.
My honor, Chad.
This is amazing.
Anytime the bishop of Los Angeles summons you, you respond to that invitation every time.
Hey, I've known you for a long time.
A quick minute.
We would have met in probably 2008, 9.
Exactly.
Probably around that era.
Yeah.
You were in Boise, Idaho.
Yes, sir.
We both are blessed because we married pastors' daughters.
Correct.
Of a movement called MFI.
Yep.
So that means our wives are spirit-filled,
yep,
sanctified,
Shondai,
again, prophesied.
No doubt.
And all the MFI girls got fashion. Your wife and my wife can,
no doubt.
Thank God
they
we
can
married
spend some money.
Some fashionistas. Yeah, they can spend some, but they can also dress us.
Yes, absolutely.
And you have been dominating since the day I met you in Boise. You have always just been, I always whenever I describe you, I always say the same guy you were when I met you in Boise. The same way that you led there is the same way that you lead today, just with confidence, a boldness, an attraction. Where did you first, when I say attraction, like your gift is attractive. Like when I watch you, I'm like, I'll follow that guy. No. When did you first kind of realize I'm a leader? I think I can do this.
Man, that's a great question. I don't know if I remember.
Like high school, college?
Probably more, yeah. Probably high school. I think I was always kind of a goofy guy, but loved just kind of the crew of people that God surrounded me with. But I don't know. It might not have been till Bible college. I really, having a great mentor, Chris Wilde, my brother-in-law.
Wow.
Started seeing stuff in me that I probably didn't see myself.
So he was your first mentor?
He was. Yeah, I got saved. I was 18.
Stop.
He was my youth pastor.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he just kind of showed me the ropes. He was this brilliant theologian, philosopher. The guy was a D1 basketball player. And when he got kind of called to ministry, he took that same ethic into his studies. So he's like, Mark, you want to be a serious pastor, you got to spend 8 hours a day studying. And he did that for years. And I'm like, well, I'm not called to be pastor apparently, because I ain't putting in 8 hours a day studying. Yeah. But he was just a brain and mentored me, but just saw stuff in me I didn't see.
Wow.
But I probably wasn't until I got a hold of one of your books that I'm like, I can do this.
Yeah.
Chad Veach. I just got to say thank you for having me on today. You've been obviously inspirational, a big brother in many ways, looked up to you for a lot of years, a lot of decades, and just honored to be on your podcast today. But I have so much respect for you and Julia, for Zoe, and just the footprint you've made in California. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Oh, you're the best. Yeah. Well, I can remember like distinctly this meeting. I feel like we were like in like a basement with college students.
Yeah.
And you're like prophesying and preaching and like just leading with such boldness all the way back then. And you haven't changed. I think we share that kind of same value of like, hey, let's just be the same guys we've always been.
Yeah.
We got a little bit more gray hair, but we're kind of just the same guys, believing for the best, believing the others, believing the best in others. Talk to me about right now. You planted this church in Orange County.
Yeah.
It's experienced incredible explosive growth. You've started this movement, which I want to get into, Baptize California. You've got a building campaign. So you're pioneering a lot. When I think about you, I think about someone that like can get something going. What's the toughest thing you face as a leader today? Like, what would be your biggest challenge? When you wake up, you're going, I got to solve this problem.
Oh man, that's a loaded. You're bringing out the big guns out of the gate here, Chad.
We're going there, man.
Oh, I think, like you always probably say this on your show, I think the hardest person to lead is yourself always. And I think just the process of reduction of what is it today that only I can do, that no one else can. And I think that just eliminating all the things that take up space, take up noise, take up bandwidth in your schedule. I think that's the hardest part of leadership is every season it changes.
Right.
So from obviously like when you guys started here, your problems, I tell people like my easiest days now would be harder than my hardest days 2 years ago, 3 years
100%.
ago. And so I don't think that God makes your life easier. I think we don't do hard things to get an easier future. I heard John Maxwell say this, we do hard things so that we can do hard things. And I think that that's the mirage that most of us chase is at some point, I'm going to do what I do and I'm going to do it well and great. And at some point it's going to get easier. And I don't know if ever the reward, it seems like the reward for good work is more work. Well done, good and faithful servant.
Wow.
Here's some more things to do. You were faithful with little.
Wow.
Here's some more. And so I think that the hardest part is going, God, what is it in this season that I have to do? And what are the things that I used to do that I got to let go of to focus on the things that are pressing now? And I think it goes back to just the simplicity. If we boiled it down into maybe a 3-step formula, it's pray, it's hear his voice, and then go do something, obey it. And it really boiled, I think Dr. Cho probably said it best, I just pray and I obey. And I think the obedience is followed by action. Wow. And I always tell our team, I think when you dream with God, that dreams that God gives you without actions are fantasies. And I think there's a lot of people that have fantasies today, but they don't experience the materialization of things materializing dream-wise because we don't really we don't follow through. But that'd be probably the simplicity.
No, it's so good. And I've watched you do that. When I think about you, again, the word pioneer comes to mind, the ability to carve out something, something out of nothing. And that is, to me, it's that grit, it's that get up and make something happen, put your best foot forward today, and that, to me, that's leadership. Leadership is just like getting up and enjoying the work.
Sure.
We're not afraid of it. Like you said, we're not trying to work so hard so we can avoid work.
Yeah.
The thrill is in the process.
That's it.
That is the satisfaction.
Yeah.
I think that's even what Jesus is saying when he's like, I've got bread that you don't know about. It's like what fuels me is doing the work.
Yeah.
What my Father intended me to do. So
love it.
I love that about you. Another thing I think about you is this boldness, like this confidence. Whenever I'm around you, whenever I hear you, it oozes out of you. How did you develop that? I think part of it, to me, is an obvious answer. There is a God factor. There is a God component.
Yeah.
David is like, by my God, I can leap over a wall. So you have that. And I think that I don't want to overstep that. That is a huge part of it. But there's a practical reality that how you've been able to mix that into your life and leadership to develop such confidence that I never feel like you have an inferiority complex or an imposter syndrome. A lot of these buzzwords we hear today about leaders, where did this confidence come from?
Well, I think you hit it. I think all confidence, real confidence, there's the man-made confidence that can kind of come from just being prepared or maybe doing your due diligence to study and showing yourself approved. But I think that the X factor is, I think, true confidence is manufactured in the presence of God. And I think that when you feel like, and I think all of us, I think every human being has a level of insecurity. We're born with certain percentages maybe of insecurity. I think it's weird. When I was younger, I think a lot of what I valued in life and ministry was fueled by what I was bothered by. And I think that we can pioneer in two settings. We can pioneer out of, I think it's easier in some ways when you're younger to be motivated by what you hate or what you dislike. And I think when you get older, you're no longer just reacting to what I hated about ministry or what I didn't like about the way this guy led. I think as you get older, you're not just reacting to what you don't like. You figure out what you actually do like.
That's right.
And they're different. Sometimes you can be better than you came from because you're not recreating what you didn't like, the dysfunction, but you're still not maybe doing what God asked you to do or being what God's asked you to be. So for me in the beginning, I recognized that my least favorite leaders were insecure leaders.
Wow.
I don't think that there's anything that drives healthy people away faster than insecurity. I think, and that's not just people in your organization, it is, but I think it's people in your church that when people sense this guy's insecure, this person is threatened by my success, threatened by my money, threatened by my following, whenever insecurity comes on the scene, people that are healthy are going to flee. So I think for me, I recognized early on, I love being around people like Chad Veach. I like people like Rich Jr. You get around certain guys and they just have this, they just know who they are. They're cool with who they are. They own their own face. They own their own personality and they almost don't apologize for it. And you don't feel like they're trying to one-up you. You don't feel like it's this, who's got a greater life, who's the greatest out of all of us. It's like, let's just laugh and have a good time. If anything, let's shed light on what we think is funny about our imperfections. Right. There's security there that I think is attractive. So I think early on in my life, I recognize I'm insecure in certain areas. I saw my brother-in-law, who was my mentor, Chris Wilde, and this guy was just really secure. He's smart. He's not an extrovert. He's not trying to preach on the circuit. He just loves the local church, loves his family, and he's given his life to developing this mind theologically. And he knew who he was. I knew I wasn't Chris, but I saw him embrace the grace that was on his life. And I'm like, I'm gonna embrace the grace. I'm not a deep scholar. I'm more of a Peter cutting ears off than a Paul writing down the deep time capsules of the faith. And so I just kind of, this is what I'm good at. I'm going to lean into it and ultimately bring that into the presence of God when I pray and say, Lord, I need confidence because I don't want to be an insecure leader. I don't like insecure leaders. And I really feel like you made me unique and I got to own what you've given me and not apologize for it. Lean into that grace. And I remember Pastor Wendell, my wife's uncle, used to always say, Mark, be strong in the grace. Be strong in the grace. He used to always say, it was one of his mantras. He told it to all of us young guys. Chad, you be strong in the grace that's in Christ Jesus. Mark, Chris, you be strong in the grace that's in Christ Jesus. So I think figuring out what that grace looks like on your life, your skill set, your personality, your background, your past experiences, your trauma, all of us have a unique path. All of us. And I think that the grace comes on that.
That's right. Yeah, there is such a boldness about you. I think that's what makes you, to me, you have like this prophet, pioneer, this just, we were snowboarding together this last year. I was skiing, you were snowboarding. Just watching you bomb down that mountain.
Chad was ripping. He's a humble man.
No, I was like, this guy, like you snowboard the way that you lead. Just no fear. Just let it all, like we're going. We're going for broke. And I like that, that old saying, like we're preaching like dying men to dying people. Like I like that. To me, that's leadership of going like, I'm not impressed with me. I'm not even impressed with my gift. I think that so much of the struggle today is that I find that young leaders are just enamored or shocked, surprised that they have such giftedness. And I think you have to wrestle that down and be like, I can't be in love with my gift because then it's all about my gift. And you got to get over that. I never find that from you that because you are so gifted, you are such a great leader. You do have the law of attraction working for you. You have so many good things going for you, but I never feel like you make it about you. And that's something to me of why people are able to rally around you. I want to get into Baptize California because this thing is get out of here. I mean, history books. Talk to me about the genesis of this idea, which was originally just Southern California. Correct. And expands. Now we're going to go to America this year. Talk to me, because I feel like it's so how God works. You get something in seed form. And then you just are faithful and God continues to make it fruitful. Talk to me about the genesis of the Baptize SoCal and where we are today.
Okay, Maddie, I'm not going to lie. I've already had 2 cups of coffee today.
Me too.
Have you ever gone like without coffee?
I can't do it. I have like withdrawal symptoms.
Same. Headaches, shakes. And so if you want headaches, I'm just kidding. But so we've partnered with an incredible shop, an incredible roaster. They've been roasting for over 20 years, specialty coffee, 5 Lakes Coffee, based out of Michigan. How cool is this? They have a blend. It's called the Chris's Blend.
I love Chris's blend.
Whenever you purchase a bag of Chris's Blend, they actually send money to a children's ministry. And so you're not just buying coffee to benefit you, you're actually buying coffee that makes a difference.
So true.
And here's the other part, okay? For me, coffee is a whole convenience factor. And so 5 Lakes does something really cool. They have a subscription offer where you can go onto their website, you can set up a subscription. You never have to wonder if you're going to have enough coffee. They're going to send it to you. You can set up however often you want to have a bag sent to your home, but it's going to be sent right to your home. They have all sorts of different roasts. If you like light roasts, all the way to dark roasts, they have the right coffee for you. Head over to 5lakes.com, and whenever you make your first purchase or your subscription, at checkout, type in the code LEADERSHIP for 25% off your first purchase. Overflow has been one of our longtime sponsors.
We love them
because we believe in what they're doing so much. Overflow has completely innovated the fundraising, donation, and giving game. Whether you're a church or you're an organization that has fundraisers or donations, Overflow will empower you to be able to receive money and empower your givers more than anyone else on the market. We're talking stocks, crypto, wills, trust, all sorts of different creative ways to give. Yeah, and it's as easy as tapping to give. And so head on over to overflow.co/LLI to set up a demo, to meet with their team. Look, even if it's just you getting introduced to their incredible team, that's worth the value of heading over and setting up a demo. Again, overflow.co/LLI, and tell them that Leadership Lean In sent you, and maybe they'll give you some extra stickers or something as well.
Extra stickers.
All right, let's head back to the podcast.
Yeah, you're right. I think everything that God does starts small. And so I was having just a small prayer time. Kind of felt like maybe like a Acts chapter 10. Peter's just praying one day.
Wow.
And in the prayer time, you know, Peter saw the blanket come down. Here's the voice of God, rise, Peter, kill and eat. And from what he saw in his prayer time, he starts to have this conversation with God. And that would be kind of how I would explain 2022. Our church was 3 years old. We had just bought an expensive building. We were in the middle of all, our college or Bible colleges growing at a rapid rate. Everything's going fast. And on a Saturday night, I'm getting ready for Sunday, and I'm reading a book, and I couldn't tell you, it was one of I can't remember what book it was, but it kind of sidebarred story about the largest water baptism in American history. And what got my attention about it was 2 things. It was in California, which my ears perked up right away. Right away. Which I think, if there was ever a state that should host a mass baptism, probably not California or New York.
Nobody's thinking
should be somewhere in the South, like Texas.
Yeah.
And so that caught my attention. It was in Orange County. And what caught my attention was it wasn't in the Jesus movement, which I thought it must have been in the 60s or the 70s. Yeah. It was actually 1990. And the LA Times did an article on it, and they said there was a festival. The festival was big, and after the festival, they all went to Pirates Cove, and they said that day, several thousand showed up, and several thousand got baptized, like 2,000 or 3,000. I read that, and it just felt like I paused, and I closed my eyes, and I felt like the Lord gave me this picture in my head. I could see Pirates Cove. I've been there a couple of times, and I saw it wasn't history. It wasn't like an old video footage of like the past. It was like a picture of the future. I saw people in my church, our church, that were in this picture, in this vision. I saw some of my friends that had nice boats and yachts with their boats parked to Pirates Cove. Wow. And I could tell, like, this isn't the past. This is actually something that's going to come in the future. Wow. And then I heard the voice of God in a very kind of almost questionnaire type of tone saying, Mark, will you do this again for me? And it was very simple, like a question. I'm like, and I just felt like, yeah, I think I'm the wrong guy to do it. And I tried to explain to God that there's a bunch of older guys with big churches and big budgets that could do this. And I'm a new guy in town. And
yes, Lord, but do you know Greg Laurie?
Yes, he's the guy. And it was before the Jesus Revolution came out. Yeah. And so that was the wild part, is I tried to talk God out of it. It was kind of like, Exodus 3, God doesn't respond to Moses' question. Yeah. He just says to go, I'll certainly be with you. I'll be with you. Who am I? Just go. And so I said, all right, I'll do it. And I heard him say, I want you to organize it. I want you to fund it. And I don't want you to put your name or your church's name on any of it. Wow. This is going to be an offering to the body of Christ. Wow. And so I'm like, great. So we tried to get some of these other guys involved with it. And We were able to get about 260 or 70 churches involved that year. It was Baptize Southern California.
Yep.
So 2023. So in the vision, God just said, Mark, my lost kids, they have no bearing on the Bible. They have no theological grid. They understand three things, he told me. They understand Christmas, my birth, Easter, my resurrection, and they know that water baptism is significant.
Wow.
You find a person off the streets,
they know.
Never been to church. They know those three things. And he goes, I want you to make water baptism the third most attended Sunday in Christendom. And I want you to start in California.
Wow.
He said this, if I could do it in Southern California, Mark, do you believe I could do it in all of California?
Wow.
And I was like, yes. He said, do you think if I did this in California, do you think I could do this in other states in America?
Wow.
Absolutely. And then the last question was, do you believe, Mark, that if I could do this in America, that I could do this in other continents? And I said, yeah, I believe that.
Wow.
So he told me in faith to buy the domain. We bought the domain to baptize California and baptize the rest of all of our states, all individually. Then we bought Baptize America, Baptize Europe, Baptize Africa, so all of South America. So we did all that in faith. Told our church about it. We started with Baptize SoCal, and this is what he said: do SoCal Pentecost Sunday. And Pentecost Sunday is significant, he said, because obviously Christianity started, the church was birthed on the day of Pentecost. 3,000 believed, 3,000 heard a bold preaching. It was passionate prayer. It was public preaching and a public declaration of faith, which, if you think about it, water baptism was some of the earliest forms of evangelism that you would see people being submerged in water in a public sector. So he told me that, that was a big part of this initiative. And ultimately, I believe that water baptism is significant for the body of Christ, because I heard him say, Mark, it's one of the few things that all of my kids agree on. One of the tenets of all of our faith.
So true.
Baptist, Presbyterian, Pentecostal, we all agree that the Great Commission, Matthew 28, 18 and 19, all authority has been given to me. Go, therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them. And then this is kind of where it got crazy, is I felt like the very end of this vision, I'm writing all this stuff down. And he said, Mark, and almost again, question format, could it be that if I came the first time to the earth on the heels of John the Baptist with a water baptism message, wouldn't it be like God to maybe before the second coming of Christ, it would maybe come on the heels of a global water baptism movement? Wow. And so I just said yes. We talked to our church about it, our board about it. Everyone's excited. We announced that we're going to do it a year later. So this is 2022 in like February. It would have been like 7 or 8 months later, I see a trailer for a movie called The Jesus Revolution, which ultimately, if I was Bill Gates or if I was Elon Musk and I wanted to promote Baptize SoCal, I would have made The Jesus Revolution. And I would just say to anyone out there listening, God will make you look like a genius if you just obey his voice.
That's exactly right.
So we did it. We launched forward, and everyone wants to get water baptized because of Jesus Revolution at Pirates Cove. So we do it there. We end up doing the largest water baptism in American history. 4,200 people nearly got baptized in one day. Took us 6 hours.
Dear God.
To get people in and out. We did a live recording. It's on YouTube. You can watch that. And then we finished that up. And basically, to backstep, before I moved to California, I had a vivid dream. I've only had one like it my entire life in 2013. And at that point, I didn't know. I knew we were going to move to California. I knew we were going to start a church. I didn't know the name of our church, the mandate of our church. But in 2013, I had a dream, very vivid. I wrote down everything. I was on this giant stage on a huge beach, very wide beach, kind of like Huntington. And there was a crowd of people like the mall in DC when it's packed, like 1 million people. There was hundreds of thousands of people on the beach, thousands getting baptized, people getting out of wheelchairs, blind eyes opening. It was like the book of Acts. And I've told this story a million times to people, that I saw the dream happening, and the weirdest part about it was I was actually aware that I was dreaming as soon as the dream started. I knew I'm dreaming right now. And I see my wife and I on this huge stage. We're talking to this massive crowd, and we said, God told us to leave Idaho, to move to California, to start a church that would be a movement. And he told us to call the church Oceans Church. Out of Habakkuk 2, out of Isaiah, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the oceans. So that was the very first time I heard Oceans Church. And in that, right after I said, God told me in the dream, which right as soon as I said it, I knew this is the dream. I knew this was the dream I'm talking about. It was weird. It was like a dream within a dream. And I'm like 3.0 student at best. So I knew this was God. I couldn't fabricate something this dynamic.
Right.
And God told me, I said this to the crowd, that he would give us favor in coastal cities and port cities around the world, that one day there'd be a major oceans church campus at every major ocean in the world, that we wouldn't worry about starting churches inland. So again, it was very vivid. There's a 3-part dream. I won't bore you all the details. That was very, very vivid though. So I always thought that was a metaphor or an analogy of a spiritual awakening that would happen in California. It wasn't until we did Baptize Southern California that we finished it. I'm sitting down with Colleen, who's the mastermind logistically of our big events. And he goes, Mark, we couldn't go back to Pirates Cove. We had too many people. We got to find a bigger beach. He said, I drew up a rendering of what we could do at Huntington Beach. He opened his laptop. I look at the rendering and I said, I've seen that before.
I saw it.
I saw that in 2013.
Ooh.
So I actually believe now that what I saw then was actually a picture of the future.
Wow. And
it wasn't like this year. This year we had 19,000 people show up to Huntington Beach. It was awesome. We baptized over 6,000 there.
Wow.
But the stage was actually facing towards the ocean, which was epic.
Yeah.
Because Bethel and we had Martin Smith.
Yeah.
They were leading worship facing towards the ocean.
Wow.
But in my dream in 2013, the stage was sideways. So the back of it would have been sand, and the front of it was sand, and the ocean on this side, the parking lot on this side. So next year we're gonna set it up that way.
Wow.
But I believe that's where we're headed. Is I believe that we'll actually see maybe 100,000 plus people showing up at Huntington Beach in the future, baptizing tens of thousands in one day. And I think there's going to be two expressions of it. There'll be a local church expression in the morning.
Yep.
Because there's some people, God said, that won't come to a beach, but they'll show up to church.
Yep.
Get baptized.
Yep.
And there'll be other people that might not show up to church, but they'll show up to the beach.
There you go.
They'll show up to the stadium, the big event publicly to get baptized. So the cool part was, out of the 6,000 that got baptized, our team asked every single person that got into the waters, what does Jesus mean to you? Have you given your heart to him?
Wow. And
we did a big marketing that was outside of the Christian world. It was just, general secular marketing. So our statistic right now, it's a rough statistic, but they're saying somewhere between 20 and 25% of everyone that got baptized at Huntington Beach, they prayed the prayer of invitation before they got baptized. So
what a massive stat.
Yeah. So that was a big win for us, is that we're not just reaching church people that haven't been baptized.
Right.
These are people that are going, hey, I want to get closer to God.
Yeah.
I know water baptism is a big deal.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So total on the day in Baptize, California, 6,000 there. Total, how many in the whole state?
It was over 12,000 in the whole state. So we had 50, I think there's, my brain's a little foggy right now. I think 57 out of 59 counties in California were represented in the baptisms.
57 out of 59.
We had mass baptism happening at the Golden Gate State Park in San Francisco.
Crazy.
Almost 40 churches gathered there.
Crazy.
Redondo Beach had a mass baptism. Torrey Pines had a mass baptism.
Amazing.
T Street, San Clemente. I mean, there was regional events happening up and down the state.
All over.
And then there was, I can't remember the exact number of churches. It was like somewhere towards 1,000 local churches that participated in the morning at their churches.
Wow.
So it was
I mean, we're getting videos from Harrison Conley, in Long Beach. We're getting
Adam Mesa.
updates from Adam Mesa.
Rancho Cucamonga.
All over. Sean Nepstad up in Northern California. People all over the state rallying
Awakening
together.
Church, San Diego,
But I do think, from a leadership standpoint, people have a real hard time buying into somebody that makes it about themselves. Like they can just kind of sense it's like, it's about your brand. It's about, your platform, your name. I think people were able to buy into it so much because clearly it was a vision from God, but also the leader was about the people, was about the 25% that didn't know who God was. But also this other 75% that's like, our name's not on this. We don't really care. It's about something bigger. I think that goes back to that security, that identity. And I think it gives us the opportunity, I say us, because I'm on the team. It gives us the opportunity to go now do America. When you think about next year, think about, because I always think the hard part about leadership is going like, Pirates Cove set the record. Let's get up and try and beat it. 12,000. That's amazing. All right. Wasn't anything like what this next year's going to be. You got to get up again.
Yeah.
As you start dreaming and thinking about Baptize America, what are some initial thoughts? You're like, I got to do this. I'm excited, but I got to, look from a leadership standpoint, what is immediate for you going like, here are some clear-cut things that I need to sort?
Yeah. Well, I think right now we're still on the wave of momentum from what just happened with Baptize California. So we're trying to steward well that momentum from all of the follow-up right now. That's where a lot of our mind is at. Is this movement isn't just about a big baptism moment. It's about how can we get people to a beach or to a public location or to a church that wouldn't normally go. How can we get them into that place of giving their heart to Jesus, responding immediately by getting baptized, and how can we then get them plugged into local churches? So that's our whole mission right now, is we have 12,000 people got baptized. Out of the 12,000, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 do not have a church home.
Wow.
So our goal right now is to get all of those people plugged in. So we are wearing them out right now with follow-up.
That's cool.
They're getting emails, text messages.
Wow.
They're getting all those updates. So our goal is, hey, this is not just a one-hit wonder moment.
Yep.
We want to see this lead into getting involved in a community that you can actually get discipled. So that's our goal. And I think that whenever it's about the people, like you said, and ultimately in the eyes of God, if it's about building the local church, not a brand, not a person, not a church, but the church, I think God's going to co-sign on that thing all day long.
100%.
So for us, we're kind of stewarding that. We'll be shifting gears, and we're already working. We've already onboarded several hundred churches for Baptize America next year. But our goal, we would love to see somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 10,000 churches on board for next year. I know it sounds like a lot, but there's over 400,000 churches in America. Some of our friends lead networks. I mean, I think one of our friends' networks has 18,000 churches in it. So just him getting on board would lend a lot of credibility to, and I'm actually meeting with him. I'm meeting with one of the other kind of big leaders, the Body of Christ in Texas. So if some of these big networks open up the door, I think we're going to see a huge response. But our dream is that every major city in every state of America would have a hub location. And if you were, and I think we're kind of fast tracking some of these things, because I thought it'd be a 2-year process of the buy-in of the local church the first year. And once people see that it's not about a brand, the people, then they buy into it. Now we can unite the leaders of states to work together for something beautiful in the evening on Sunday, Pentecost Sunday, that would actually bring the city together.
Wow.
So it's already starting to happen. The second stage is already occurring. I thought we'd have to go 2 years into it. But if you were to forecast what I think is going to happen in the days to come, we've seen crusades, we've seen stadium events, we've seen worship concerts, but we've never seen something, I believe, that's honored the kind of trifecta of high praise, gospel presentation, with an emphasis on immediate water baptism. So I would dream, and I think God's given us kind of permission to dream with him on this, is I see what does it look like in 3 years if not only we have millions getting baptized in local churches in the morning, but what does it look like when the great churches of all these major cities, what does it look like if they rent out the Mercedes-Benz arenas, the SoFi stadiums, AT&T Arena. And there's not only 100,000 in the seats, but there's above ground swimming pools on the football field. With a band that represents that city from all of the churches in that city. And you have the fathers and mothers of that city on the, in that atmosphere declaring the gospel. And actually in the pools, baptizing the people of their city. I think that could be the future of where we're going.
Really cool.
And not just in the stadiums, I think beaches, lakes, public settings. But there's something I felt like God said that's special. The day of Pentecost was unique because those baptisms happened in the public sector. So I think that we'll honor the sacred in the church. But there's something so evangelistic about saying, hey, are you coming to AT&T Arena with us? We're going to have this crazy, Chris Tomlin's going to be leading worship. It's going to be an awesome experience. But then you have all of the pastors of DFW that are there baptizing their city, working together. And I think what was cool about it is you see guys like you, like me, that we don't, I almost felt like it feels like Kobe and LeBron and Michael Jordan, all these guys that don't normally get to play on the same team
get to unite.
It's like you usually play in Europe, you're usually playing in Japan, you're in Israel playing, I'm in the NBA playing, and now we get to all work together to actually win together. And so I think for that unity piece of it, 'cause we had the largest Baptist churches in our state.
Wow.
We had the largest spirit-filled evangelical churches.
Wow.
So to create a place that we can go, hey, let's all play together and let's do something. And I think it's John 17. When we are one, we're answering the prayer of Jesus when we work together. And obviously where there's unity, God commands that just serious blessing. So that's what I'm excited about.
Whew. And that's just America.
Yeah.
Think about that. So you got America coming up.
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, I haven't heard that vision before. That is so exciting. The stadiums and the major cities. I love, of course, the whole nation. And I want to see, you know, the lakes and the suburbs and all that. But there's something about a major city, seeing something like that happen.
The world has to take that serious.
In Atlanta, exactly.
Yeah.
In Atlanta, DC, Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, these major metropolitan areas. It'd be so cool to see. I mean, there is something about baptism.
Yeah.
I love that is the vision. And I think it's so easy. You're easy to rally around as a leader. I think baptism is another thing that's easy to rally around. And so all of it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it. I want to ask you about fundraising. When you get a big vision, so you got a lot of leaders that are like, man, I had a dream. I saw something big. I'm chasing this image that God gave me downloaded. When you go to raise money for a building, a vision like this, what are some key thoughts that you have? Because I do think that it's important that we talk about as leaders, like we got to have resources.
Yeah.
Resources to me is people, you know, getting the right people. This guy that showed you the laptop and showed you the image, getting the right strategist. When you go to not just raise awareness, marketing, but raise finances, what are some things you think about?
Yeah. Obviously, that's going to be a big part of whatever we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in a building campaign right now.
That's what I'm thinking. It's like, man, this guy's got to raise a lot of money.
Yeah, no, we bought an $18 million building. We're doing like a $9 million build out on it. So we're still in that process. We have obviously just normal expenses that growing churches have. But no, I think our conviction has just been, I think that's probably the gift of pioneering from the ground up versus taking over something that's big and established.
Right.
Is you're able to kind of take risk. You're growing as the church grows. Your risks are kind of, and I don't know, I don't like to be, we obviously always err on the safe side. I'm a rainy day fund type of leader.
Yes.
The boiler fund is kind of what some of the older generation would call it. So we've always been really good at making sure we are ready for if things don't go well, what will we do?
Yeah.
But I think on the other side of it is I've always been very intentional. My wife and I, she's just probably the secret sauce. A lot of what we do, she prays all the time and just always is just in that posture of like, how do we involve God into the details of what we're doing? So I'll pray specifically and I'll go, God, hey, this is, they're saying it's going to be $500,000, which I was hoping it was going to be like a $500,000 endeavor.
Yeah.
Baptize California costed almost $1.1 million. And so I asked the Lord, how are we going to do that? And he told me, I want you to believe God, believe me, for 30 people to give $10,000. Wow. And then I want you to believe me for 20 pastors to give $10,000 and that your church will rally the rest. And so that was the way that I felt like I wrote it down. And I submitted it to the church. I said, hey, I felt like there's 30 of you that can give $10,000 to this. It'll be, obviously it's not whatever God puts on your heart. And I believe there's probably some church leaders that can maybe sow 10. You guys were one of the churches. Thank you, Chad, for being one of those 20 churches that gave $10,000. I don't know exact breakdowns, but I would say it's pretty close to that.
Wow.
What it turned out.
Yeah.
We probably raised $500,000 from that. I don't know all the breakdowns of everything, but I know we ended up, we did. So we finished the night. I get back to the hotel, and there's a guy in our church who's kind of a newer believer, very successful business guy. And he just said, hey, Mark, I want to kind of know the play-by-play of where you're at with the budget. So I came into the day of, I think we were like around $250,000 short the day of the event. And I don't like having pressure.
Yeah.
especially offering. I think that's something I don't like. I don't like when guys put pressure on you, like, you're responsible for this last quarter of $1 million. Like, hey, if this has blessed you, you believe in the vision of it.
Yeah.
So I think we raised another $70,000. So we are $149,000 short when I laid in my hotel bed at 12:30.
Wow.
It was over. And this guy texted me, goes, Mark, how'd it go? And I said, well, hey, we're in great shape. I said, I was hoping that we'd have it paid off today. We're $149,000 short, but I know our church is generous. I'm going to bring it to them this next Sunday. Maybe I'll raise half of it next Sunday, and maybe we'll just chew it down from there. We have money in savings if we have to carry it. And he responds right away and says, no need to do that. He says, I'll cover the gap for that $149,000. He says, thank you for what you do. Thank you for loving my family. And thank you for dreaming dreams with God.
Come on.
And so I got to go to sleep that night knowing that Baptize California was paid in full. And so I think God comes through.
That's right.
I just think that we got to make sure that we're, I think sometimes we swing for home run territory before we learn how to bunt, before we learn how to hit a base hit.
That's right.
And I think that, there's got to be some bears and lions that we're faithful with before we start swinging for the fence.
That's right.
Last year was about $150,000. We did that. So I felt like even though it was a big step, 10 times a step, I knew that God was going to help us out this year too.
That's right. I like that, especially the way that you broke that down with the, different churches, different pastors of your church. I do think that when it comes to raising money, you have to bring God in to give you the creativity for your finances. The finance, money's, I always think, I can't imagine trying to run my finances, personal life, corporate life, without the creativity of the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely.
God will make you creative.
Yes.
And sometimes you feel like money, we have a little bit of money. Other times you feel like, we do not have the money that we need right now.
Yeah.
And, I heard someone say, where there is need, there is waste.
It's really good.
A lot of times when you're in need, it's just because you've been wasting.
Yes.
And you could be a better steward.
Yeah.
That is I think, your time, your talent, and your treasure. I think if there's waste, if there's need, there's waste. So I like that, because when I look at your life, I go, here's somebody that's willing to take big risks. Here's someone that's willing to go out there and swing for the fences, but he's not out there recruiting God. God has sent you out on the water. Lord, if it's you, tell me to get out on the water and walk towards you.
Yeah.
So you're out walking because somebody called you.
Yeah.
And I always think, it's cheesy. We grew up with this one. If he called you to it, he'll see you through it.
Yeah.
If it's his will, it's his bill, baby.
No doubt.
And I just, thank you so much for being the leader that you are. I think there's a generation that's watching you, not just our peers, but a younger generation that you have a voice into that are going like, what does it look like? In the same way that you had a Chris Wilde, I know there's so many leaders looking to you going like, show me what does it look like to launch something brand new in an area you don't know a soul in, moving from Boise, Idaho down to Orange County. Show me what it looks like to start Baptize. We see the numbers now, but started with a notepad, started with a word, started with a dream. And I always think, it's like you think about leadership there's nothing sexy to it. There's nothing glamorous. If it's about your ego, it's going to get smashed.
Yeah.
We signed up for the service industry.
That's it.
That's all we are is nobodies trying to tell the world about a somebody.
That's it.
And so I just want to say thank you for being the same guy that I met in Boise, Idaho years ago. Let's just keep going.
I love it.
Until our hair grows gray and
I'm getting there faster than you, Chad.
No, man.
Unfortunately.
We're in it together. But thank you so much. I love you, bro.
I love you too.
Yeah, you're the best.
Back at you. I appreciate you so much.
We'll see you next time, leaners. We love you.